A healthy marriage. A healthy marriage is built on friendship, communication, emotional regulation, shared meaning, intimacy, and stress management. Today in our episode, we're going to discuss the fundamentals of a successful marriage. It's a touchy episode. It's maybe go into dark places that you don't want to go yourself, or you tried before and you couldn't make it. And that's why we have this episode today to expose those dark places that you don't want to go. Might be dark for you, might not. And whatever you are in your marital relationship, if you are about to start, if you are struggling, or maybe you are falling apart right now, this episode will be hopefully very important for you. Especially we're bringing for you today professionals. We're bringing Dr. Anthony Kelada, a professor of medicine in the North State University, California, and a psychiatric for the last 10 years practicing in NorCal, who had seen a lot of cases. And welcome, Dr. Kelada. Thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Mark, for having me. And this is such an important topic. I have several people I see in my clinic who are working on marital issues or are trying to recover after a marriage went to a divorce. And so I think this is such an important topic that hopefully we can give some information there that's practical and people can learn and benefit from.
From the psychological view, what do you think are the main pillars for marriage or marital relationship?
Yeah, I think you sort of touched upon it in the introduction, but communication is going to be important. A shared level of like common values or ways to live by. And oftentimes we see the marriage couple working on common goals. So they work together on goals. And so you want to have someone that you really like or admire, someone you can talk to that you don't have to be shy or timid or tiptoe around things. You have to be really sometimes honest and open in a marriage relationship because it can have huge impacts on your medical and physical health.
Absolutely. And you talked a lot about emotional regulation too, and about communication too. What do you think about emotional regulation and communication?
You really need to be aware of your emotions and what causes you to feel one way or another way because you want to make sure you don't blame it on the people closest to you. You need to make sure you don't blame it on your spouse or your kids or the people that you really love. And also, you don't want to get in the habit of being defensive or having people being scared to approach you because you're just not mature enough or haven't learned how to handle some of those emotions.
Yeah, you gotta go back to friendship. And you mentioned to me that friendship is one of the top pillars in the marital relationship. Why do you think that, especially friendship, is very important in this relationship?
Well, our marriage relationship is really going to shape how one thinks and feels, and even we see this in mental health that there's a form of therapy called cognitive therapy where you sort of retrain or rethink how you're thinking about situations. And one of the ways to do that is ask yourself, would a good friend say that about me? Or would a good friend think that way? Or how would a good friend look at the situation? And so you can see it has a huge impact on just treating different mental health conditions. And so you can imagine if your spouse is a good friend, that's going to help to provide some of that reasoning, that clarity. But if they are not a good friend, they could be a big source of our pain, our frustration, our issues. So it's such an important dynamic to really choose wisely and act in a good way when you do find that person.
I think also that the friendship is built on trust, and trust is everything in marriage. I bet everyone is dreaming, if they are not in this relationship, to have a wife or a husband or a partner that they can share anything with a complete trust. There is no shortcuts. There is no hidden secrets. We talked about Gottman and Levinson in 1992 in their book about marriage. They emphasized the trust related to friendship.
Gottman he's a PhD, he's one of the pillars of having a healthy marriage and what to look for in a healthy marriage. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of what he talked about later. But usually when I see trust, I actually see it from the other end. What happens when someone has broken that trust or had a betrayal? Maybe they're committed adultery or they cheated or gotten addicted to drugs. And really, that's very fragile for the other partner. And it can lead to them having mood changes. It could lead to problems sleeping. It could lead them to not being able to trust other people just because of the fragile nature of that relationship. So you really want to be sure to do all you can to maintain that trust within the marriage bond.
Moving on to the communication, I know that communication, some people laugh at it. Like, do I need to learn communication now? I think you do. I really think you need to do a refreshment for your communication style. What do you think about the communication importance in any marital relationship?
Yeah, sometimes people just need somebody to listen to them or to be there to support. And so we have this called like reflective listening or summarization. Communication might just be listening to what the other people say without reacting, without providing your advice or your judgments on the situation. It might be just being there, like not having to say anything. So knowing what your partner is communicating and what they need is also going to be important because you have to sometimes put yourself in their shoes in order to understand their perspective, what they're going through. And at the same time, we have to know what we're going through as well. If we can't process our emotions or aren't in a space where we can communicate, maybe we have to let them know this is not the right time. Can we work on this a little bit later?
And do you see a lot of problems coming to you, like couples coming to you because they didn't manage their conflict with the right communication way, like the basics, soft spoken, then empathy and active listening, as you said? Do you think this is a major problem that you can see in your practice due to lack of communication skills in problem solving or conflict solving?
Yeah, it's amazing how different perspectives there can be between a husband and wife on the same circumstance. But sometimes an issue comes up, and one of the wives might think, for example, I've had people in my clinic who feel very devalued by their spouse or that their spouse doesn't listen to them or doesn't care about their feelings. So if you can make sure you communicate to be concerned about their feelings or care about the other feelings, that's going to be important. I have another couple that this was a while back. Unfortunately, they divorced, but the wife perceived the spouse as addicted to drugs. And the husband didn't think he was addicted or never was open about it. And so you can see there's a sort of different perception between the two. So the communication, being on the same page, working on the same goals together is important.
That's right. And yeah, the four horsemen that Gottman talk about. Can you talk to us a little bit about the criticism, the content, the defensiveness, the stonewalling that Gottman mentioned, and what is the importance of those four horsemen?
Yeah, so basically Gottman studied these categories and he basically was able to evaluate if a husband and wife were able to stick together in their marriage or divorce based on their communication styles and how they interacted. And basically those four that you mentioned were signs that the couple were likely going to break up or lead to a divorce. So essentially, in short, like our minds tend to focus on something that's anxious or anxiety provoking or something negative. So you want to make sure if you say something that might come across as negative or critical to your spouse, you need to like sort of sandwich it with positive statements. Say, in fact, Gottman says you need at least 4 or 5 positive statements to offset one negative statement.
The
And so
emotional bank.
yeah. So you need to make sure you deposit in the emotional bank and make
Yeah.
sure there's a lot of investments in there before you have to say something that might be perceived as critical or something that, they might hurt the other person. And one of those that you especially mentioned, with I think is the most concerning, is stonewalling. That's not talking to the person altogether. So we said how important communication is, how they have to work together to solve the right problems and issues together. But if there's not that communication, it's not even living with a roommate. It would be worse. It's living with
Yeah.
someone that you have to work with and problem solve with, and they don't communicate with you.
You built the walls that separate you from your partner a bit by bit, and you just don't think about it. Oh, separating yourself, never check in, never do regular tune-ups. I love to mention to the audience, and I know you know about it, Stephen Covey mentioned about the emotional bank, and he mentioned something very good news for every husband and every wife, that the emotional bank he talked about, that you need to deposit a lot before withdraw when you have conflicts. It's not about the grand act. It's not about the diamond ring. It's not about the Mercedes-Benz 1995 coupe. It's not about that. It's just about the small acts that you do every day, the flowers, the thank you, the I love you. Those are the main bank deposit. You need to make sure you deposit those every day because those are the main build of the bank. So we talked about stress management. I would like you to talk to us more about the stress management in your practice and between couple and how this affect the success of marital relationship.
I'll tell you, I can give you an example that comes to mind is I have a couple that I'm seeing in my practice, and one of them works a lot, a very demanding job. And so if they have a long day at work, they're going to want to come home and just relax for an hour and sleep. Where the wife, who is mostly a stay at home mom, does work a little bit, but she wants her husband there to help with the kids, to support her with her psychological needs and her emotional needs. But unfortunately, sometimes the husband is just too drained about his work and has too much energy he has to put on his work that he's not able to fit those needs with the wife. And so you can see even that, even not has to do directly with stress management, but the stress that one of the people goes through is going to affect the other, either directly or indirectly. And so you want to make sure you have a lifestyle or you can live a lifestyle with your partner. You know what that entails. They're going to be there when you need it, or if they're not there, you can be accepting of that.
This is a time, if you are below 18 or 21, according to the country you're watching us from, it's time to leave the episode, because what we are going to talk about right now is sexual intimacy, and you shouldn't be there. I made sure I flagged this episode for adults only for this very last topic, that one of the pillars of the success of marital relationship is the sexual intimacy or the intimate relationship. I wouldn't love to describe it as sexual, because this is love relationship, but we're gonna talk about it in details in the next episode. But I just want couple words from your experience, Dr. Anthony, about the sexual intimacy, and it's important. And I know you studied Gottman a ton, and obviously Gottman talked a lot about the sexual intimacy in marital relationship, and also actually it was in Gottman and Silver, 1999. I'm gonna put all the reference in the description.
Sexual intimacy is huge, and it's a way to bond with your spouse. It's a way to show them love, affection, and it can be a real marker of the health of the relationship as well. If someone wants to have sexual intimacy and the other person does not, how are you guys going to communicate or compromise on the situation? If one is feeling hurt by the other, they may not want to have that sexual intimacy. If one is really fatigued or tired from their job or the kids, they may not have the energy for the intimacy. Sometimes medications can cause side effects where people can't be intimate with the others. Sometimes depression or diabetes or other medical or mental health conditions can affect the intimacy between a partner. So it's really important to be realistic about those needs and to be sure there can be a compromise there. And sometimes that's a huge source of friction or blessing, depending on how it's going.
Right. And I think the reason we chose to close the episode today was intimate relationship, because intimate relationship is not the reason that you get married. And if it is, I'm telling you, my friend, you've been mistaken, because intimate relationship is an expression for each one of the couple love to the other one. So basically, if you did your homework on friendship, and you did your homework on conflict management, and you did your homework on your emotional regulation, and you make sure that you are a good conflict manager, if you did your homework on those four, you're going to have a fantastic intimate relationship. If you don't show your female partner or your wife that she's appreciated, and if you don't show your husband that he is appreciated and he is a great man in your life, and if you fail to show your wife that she's not the second person in the house, that she is a partner with you, I think you will have the least problem in an intimate relationship, except there is for sure some medical condition. And even those medical condition, one of the great treatment of them, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Kelada, is the help of the other partner to stimulate the other partner. So, Dr. Kelada, thank you so much for all the good information you give it to us today. And any last comment, Dr. Kelada?
There's so much more to say on this topic. It's such a great topic, but thank you for having me, Mark. And maybe in future episodes, we can talk more about this.
We're looking forward for the next episode. We're going to talk more about that for sure. Thank you, Dr. Kelada.
Thank you, Mark.
Appreciate it.